Free the land. 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 Free the land, y'all. Free the land, beautiful people. Free the land. Good day to you all. Good evening to you all. Good day. Free the land, beautiful people. As you know, I'm gonna give y'all some time to get into this live, man. Share this live, y'all. This is something. This is breaking news. Breaking news. Please share this live. Share this live with everyone, y'all. Breaking news. Share this live with everybody. Soon as you come into this live, please share this live. Breaking news. Share this live with groups, friends, family members, everybody. Please share this live. Greetings to Biafra. All hail Biafra, man. All hail New Africa. Free the land, y'all. Free the land. Please share this live, y'all. Man, this breaking news that I'm about to speak with y'all on, you know, it couldn't even wait. You know what I'm saying? Like, as soon as I got home, it's like 30 degrees here. It's like 30 degrees here where I'm at in Virginia. This news is so breaking that I didn't even get a chance to take none of my clothes up, my coat off, nothing off. I had to hop straight on here and bring this information to y'all as soon as I got it. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you've seen the last couple of posts that I made a few minutes ago. Then y'all gonna know what this live is truly about, man. But yeah, man, all hail Biafra, man. All hail New Africa. I ain't gonna be on here long. I just wanted to get on here real quick and just talk about this breaking news. This breaking news, y'all. Matter of fact, let me share this with my personal Facebook page. And please share this live, y'all. Share this live on your timelines. Share this live in all groups because this is breaking news, y'all. Breaking news. Breaking news, y'all. Salute to Spain. One love to all the Biafrans out in Spain, man. Share this with all the people in Spain because this live, man. This is pertaining to all our people, man. No matter where you spread it out at across the globe. This news, man. Today, man, it just came across globally, internationally from the Washington Post. I couldn't even wait. I just couldn't even wait for to even get on here to speak on it. If you seen my last post, this is pertaining to my last post. Yes, brother. Yes, brother. We got to keep fighting and pushing till all black people come back home to Africa. And this live, it definitely has something, you know, deep pertaining to us, you know, really going back home to Africa or whatever's going on. Let me say this by starting off on this live, man. I know right now that black people across the world, African people across the world, I know we are battling and we're struggling against this biological germ. No doubt. Whether it's man-made or it's you know, Mother Nature made or whatever. Yes, we're still struggling and fighting against COVID, Omicron, all these variants of these biological germs. That's a struggle. We got to continue to fight that. But I wanted to hop on here real quick because I want to keep reminding people that we can't get distracted, brothers and sisters. We can't get distracted no matter what's going on because there's been a struggle going on, you know, during biological warfare and during, you know, famines, diseases, and all these type of things, viruses and all these type of things. Yes, these type of things are going to happen. You know what I'm saying? And it's going to continue to happen. But I always got to keep coming on here to remind people and to keep that energy manifesting for our struggle, our liberation, and our freedoms of our Africa, Biafra, New Africa, all these struggles to continue to free our people, man, and try to get our people back home. You see what I'm saying? No matter where that homeland is going to be, no matter where that land is going to be liberated at. But we got to always continuously to remind our people who our true enemies are. Period. Now, as being a new African citizen, a descendant of Biafrans and things of that nature when it comes to politics. Yes, especially on an international and national level. Yes, we know we have to have diplomatic relations with certain enemies that we don't want to really have diplomatic relationships with. So sometimes we do compromise, you know what I'm saying, with certain nations and peoples that we truly don't want to, really, compromise with. You see what I'm saying? But one thing for sure the reason why I want to hop on it real quick, one thing that we can never compromise is our genocide. Listen to what I'm telling you. This video is highly relatable to anybody and any peoples that's being oppressed, murdered, genocide, and have been. This is continuous through your history. You see what I'm saying? No matter where you at on this planet as a black person, an African, a new African, where you at, wherever you at, and you're being genocided until this day, if you're being genocided, this pertains to you. Because one thing we can never compromise is on the struggle to gain justice for our genocides. You see what I'm saying? And our constant genocides. You know what I'm saying? This video today is pertaining to one of those genocides. One of those genocides is slavery, which still continues today. Slavery still continues today. But I'm talking about a period in time that's a different slavery, which is chattel slavery. You see what I'm saying? Or the transatlantic slavery, the African slavery on the continent in the periods of time of the 1500s, the 1600s, the 1700s, the 1800s. You see what I'm saying? All the way into now, slavery that continues today. You see what I'm saying? Because we're still being oppressed and genocide today. You see what I'm saying? But this story that just broke today by the Washington Post is one of the most breaking stories to date on genocide, slavery, brothers and sisters. Because now, and this is for people who don't know how to separate struggles and enemies on a reality basis, you know what I'm saying, basis, period. Because a lot of us are out of tune with reality. We need to bring some of y'all back into reality. Because no matter what we try to do diplomatically, internationally, and nationally, we never compromise to hold those people responsible for the genocide of our ancestors. You see what I'm saying? We never compromise nothing when it comes to the genocide of our ancestors and the genocide that's continuing on our people today. Where today, in breaking news, brothers and sisters, in breaking news today, this was released today earlier by the Washington Post, one of the most significant Western media companies and Western news companies in the world. The Washington Post released this today. And what does this state, brothers and sisters? If you've seen what I posted probably like an hour or two ago on my personal page, Instagram, Twitter, every social media website that I'm on right now, I have posted breaking news. And what is that breaking news? Today, the United States of America, the Washington Post media of the United States of America has now created and released a database. Listen to what I'm telling you, brothers and sisters. The United States government and the Washington Post today has just released a national and international database putting out evidence, a database of evidence of over 1,700 U.S. congressmen, senators, presidents, political figures who owned and had black people as property and slaves in slave land America. Breaking news. Breaking news, y'all. Breaking news. So now we don't have to have no debates. Now we don't have to debate with nobody. We don't have to debate with no people or nobody. The evidence has now been released today. A U.S. national database, historical archive, has released the names of over 1,700 U.S. congressmen, U.S. senators who owned black African slaves, who owned your ancestors, brothers and sisters. Share this live with everybody. This is breaking news, brothers and sisters. This is breaking news for African people globally, because anything that affects one African people affects all African people. And the most horrendous is the transatlantic slave trade and the domestic slave trade of the United States of America that displaced millions of our African ancestors across the African diaspora and across the world, and brutalized and genocided and murdered African people for over 400 to 500 years. We now have the names, brothers and sisters. We now have the names of over 1,700 U.S. congressmen, U.S. senators, whether they're Democratic or Republican. We have the names of U.S. congressmen, U.S. senators who owned black people, who owned and sold and traded and slave breeded and kidnapped and murdered and worked to death through hard slave labor. We now have the criminals' names. Over 1,700 politicians of the United States government of America owned black people, owned your ancestors, man. The playtime is now over. It been over. The playtime been over. The playtime been over. But for all you black people, whether you live in America, whether you live in the African diaspora, whether you live in Africa, it's now time to get out of the mental enslavement, and thinking that the United States of America is a paradise. When the United States of America was founded and built on the genocide, the enslavement, and capture of your African ancestors, brothers and sisters. We now have the names. We now have the names of United States senators, congressmen who owned Igbo people, who owned Mandinka people, who owned Ashanti people, who owned Wolof people, who owned Iwe people, who owned Ga people, who owned Fa people, who owned Mende people, who owned various African ethnic groups from West Africa on U.S. soil. We now have the names of Democratic and Republican senators, congressmen, 17, over 1,700 politicians who were a part of this government and who still have descendants. Listen to what I'm telling you. 1,700 white men, Democrats, Republicans, who owned black people for over 300 years, treated them like nothing. They wasn't property. They wasn't human beings. They had no value. They had value only for hard labor and enslavement and brutalization and dehumanization. 1,700 criminals of the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, who still have descendants, who are still in office today, that you vote for, every 4 years. They have grandchildren, children who are alive today, whose great-grandparents, great-great-great-grandparents, the so-called founding fathers, the so-called United States founding fathers have over 1,700 co-defendants, 1,700 criminal co-defendants who traded and owned your ancestors for over 300 years on United States soil, let me correct that, on indigenous nations soil. On indigenous nation soil. These people have, listen to what I'm telling you, these people have violated so many international laws, human rights, that it is hard to even fathom. This is how many laws internationally that the United States of America has broken and violated as criminals. And none is worse than owning a people, enslaving a people. That's the biggest crime in history. The biggest crime in history is owning another human being. The biggest crime in history. 1,700 brothers and sisters. And I got the link. The link is inside the description of this live. Please share this live with everybody, y'all. This is breaking news. And if you can, please share the link article so you can make these non-believers, believers. That who do we really trust? Who can we really trust? Whether you are African, New African in the United States of America, or an African that's in the African diaspora or living on the African continent, who can we trust, brothers and sisters? When you have arguably what y'all claim, because I don't claim it, but the world claims, you have the so-called greatest country in America, the United States of America. Their politicians and members of their government had your ancestors enslaved, and we have 1,700 names of these criminals who were politicians of the Democratic and Republican Party. Because we're going to stop playing these games, brothers and sisters. We're going to stop playing these games. Trying to pick and choose one oppressor over the next oppressor. Where's the common sense in that? Where's the common sense in that? This is why we know we are colonized peoples, y'all. This is why so many black people are colonized. Yes, you are a victim of colonialization. Because anytime you choose to pick between two oppressors who are a part of the same government, and we're going to do this on a basis of historical materialism. Historical materialism tells us that any government that is a part of a citizen's, so-called citizens, if a government is a part of so-called citizens and are aiding and are inflicting and initiating genocide and slavery and holocausting their citizens, that government has to be held responsible. International law. International law. International law. Brothers and sisters. International law. International law. International law. And listen to what I'm saying. I'm not just talking about no wealthy, regular, citizen or white landowner who stole land from the indigenous nations and they became wealthy off of enslaving Africans and enslaving black people. No, I'm talking about the people who ran and worked inside the government, who called the shots. Nothing in no government or no country can be, brought into law. Nothing can be brought into law. Nothing can get passed without the Congress and Senate. The Congress and Senate. Nothing. Nothing can get passed. These are the most important people when it comes to governance. If you don't know nothing about governance, this is the most important body of people to governments and governance. So I'm asking black people this question, especially you black Americans and black people inside of America. How do you trust people who have now been exposed and their descendants are still in the same government, still running and controlling the same government? How do you trust individuals who did this to your ancestors, brothers and sisters? How? How do you trust people that did this to your ancestors? Whether they Republicans or Democrats. We ain't being picky. I'm never picky when it comes to oppressors. Oppressors are oppressors. Oppressors, slavers, enslavers come in all color, sizes, and shapes. Our enemies comes in all color, sizes, and shapes. They are part of every organizational structure and government body, law enforcement agency in this country. I know you can relate. I know you can relate Biafrans in Nigeria. That's just like the Biafrans in Nigeria. They know for a fact every part of the federal Nigerian government is a part of their genocide. In some kind of way, form, or fashion. So I'm trying to figure out, how do black Americans in America pick and choose between criminals, you feel me? Criminals who are part of a governing body that are the main reason why you're in the oppression and the struggles and the genocide that you are in today, whether it's socially, economically, and even politically, because we don't have no political power. You see what I'm saying? How do we trust people like that? Why do we invest in people like that, brothers and sisters? How? How does that lead to black liberation? How does that lead to black liberation? It don't lead to black liberation, brothers and sisters. When you're investing in the same people who have you in the same national oppression that the same individuals, their ancestors, their forefathers, their foremothers did to your forefathers and foremothers who were brought over here, kidnapped, and enslaved in America on indigenous nations' lands. Where's the common sense in that? Where's the common sense in that? That's all I want to know. Whether it's voting or participating in some kind of capacity of the United States government, whether it's locally, nationally, state, city, how do you support these people, brothers and sisters, knowing that these people could be descendants of the people that's on this new criminal list, this database list? Now, this is the biggest evidence. Look, this is the most significant evidence to date, brothers and sisters, for reparations. We have an entitlement where we've been having entitlement, but we have more evidence to take down and hold accountable and take to court, whether it's internationally or, locally, of the United States of America. We now have evidence. We have a case. We have a significant case, brothers and sisters, when they have released the names of the criminals who did this to your African ancestors, who owned your African ancestors on indigenous nation lands. We now have the evidence and names of people who were a part of that government and are still a part of that government today. So I'm not going to do any debates, and I'm not going to go back and forth with people who are colonized and who can't make their mind up on which oppressor is worse than the next oppressor, whether they Republican or Democratic. I don't have time for individuals like that. I would not debate, talk, nor chatter with people who have to sit and think or which oppressor is being good to me, when none of them were good to me. None of them was good to my ancestors. Because if they were good, moral human beings, then they would have never did this to our ancestors. And now we're way past the actions. We're way past their criminal actions. So this falls even on their descendants. Because if their descendants can't show no humane morale, justice that their ancestors did to our ancestors, then they are no good than their forefathers and foremothers. So why would I want to support or, choose between the two when both are the same oppressors, the same enemies, the same colonizers? There's no difference between the Republican Democratic Party, brothers and sisters. No different. When we now have the same criminals on a database for their criminal actions as being a part of the United States of government and enslaving black African people, man. And let me just read a little bit of it. Let me read like a little bit of it. And like I said, you can read this article and pass this article around to the younger generations, the older generations, and to your brothers and sisters all across this African diaspora, because this is an international website, the Washington Post, one of the most known Western medias in the world. The article states, brothers and sisters, this is what the article states. More than 1,700 congressmen once enslaved black people. This is who they were and how they shaped this nation. The Washington Post has compiled the first database of slaveholding members of Congress by examining thousands of pages of census records and historical documents. For the first 7 decades of its existence, the Congress returned again and again to one acrimonious topic, slavery. Many of the lawmakers arguing in Washington were participants in the brutal institution at home. Here's what they looked like on March 7th, 1850, as Senator Daniel Webster delivered a famous speech about slavery. 45 of the 106 congressmen listening owned human beings. Those slaveholders included Jefferson Davis, Andrew Johnson, and Sam Houston. And they have a picture. And they have a picture of that speech in this database. I'm gonna just read the most important parts of this article. I'm not gonna read all of it because you gotta go read this on your own. From the founding of the United States until long after the Civil War, hundreds of elected leaders writing the nation laws were current or former slave owners. More than 1,700 people who served in the U.S. Congress in the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries owned black human beings at some point in their lives. According to the Washington Post investigation of the census and other historical records, the country is still grappling with the legacy of their embrace of slavery. The link between race and political power in America echoes in complicated ways, from racial inequalities that persist to this day to polarizing fights over voting rights and the way that history is taught in schools. The Washington Post created a database that shows enslavers, congressmen, represented 37 states, including not just the South, brothers and sisters. The Northerners were enslavers too. New York City, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania. The northern states were some of your biggest enslavers. Facts. So, but every state in New England, much of the Midwest, and many western states. How about that? How many of y'all know that western states in the United States owned black people? Some were owners of enormous plantations, like Senator Edward Lloyd V. of Maryland, who enslaved 468 people in 1832 on the same estate where abolitionist Frederick Douglass was enslaved as a child. Many exerted great influence on the issue of slavery, like Senator Elias Kent Kane, who enslaved 5 people in Illinois in 1820 and tried to formally legalize slavery in the state of Illinois. For the first 18 years of American lawmaking, from 1789 to 1807, more than half the men elected to Congress each session were slaveholders. Listen closely. As the northern states outlawed slavery, the proportion of congressmen who are slave owners declined. But some congressmen in New England continued to enslave people until at least 1820. And some representatives of New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and other states continued to enslave people for as long as a decade. Let me get to the most important part. This is the most important part. This is the part that I want all y'all to read in this article. William Richardson, for example, a Democrat. This is for you black Democrats. Listen closely. Black Democrats, listen closely. William Richardson, for example, a Democrat, a white Democrat, who fought for the Confederacy, died in office in 1914 after representing Alabama for 14 years. Another Democrat, another white Democrat, Rebecca Felton, a suffragist and a white supremacist, was appointed to fill the Senate vacancy in 1922 and briefly represented Georgia at the age of 87. The first woman to ever serve in the Senate was a former enslaver, a slave holder. Let me say that once again. The first white woman or the first woman to ever serve in the United States Senate was a former slaveholder, Rebecca Felton. Listen closely. Listen closely. Listen closely. Enslavers came from all parts of the political spectrum, the U.S. political spectrum. Enslavers came from all portions of the political U.S. spectrum. The Washington Post database includes lawmakers who are members of more than 60 political parties of the United States of America. Because you got to remember, back then, there were so many political parties in the United States of America, brothers and sisters. So many white, because these were white political parties. Because remember, black people ain't own nothing. They were slaves then. They were enslaved then. We had no political parties then. So over 60 white political parties owned black African human beings. Over 60 U.S. political parties owned black African human beings. 60 white political parties owned black African human beings. These 60 political parties were the Federalists, the Whigs, the Unionists, the Populists, the Progressives, the Prohibitionists, and dozens more. All those parties included slaveholders. And let me remind you, all these parties like the Federalists, the Whigs, the Unionists, the Populists, the Progressiveness, these are now the people that made up what you know today as the Democratic and the Republican Party. Listen closely. The most common political affiliation associated with enslavement was the Democratic Party. 606 Democrats in Congress were slaveholders. How about that? Over 606 white Democrats, 606 Democrats were slaveholders who were a part of the United States Congress. How about that? 606 criminals, 606 white supremacist terrorists were a part of the Democratic Party that owned black African human beings. While the early Republican Party is associated with abolitionists and abolition, however, the Washington Post states over 481 of those Republicans identified were slave owners and at some point were elected in their careers as political figures of the United States of America. So now we have 481, count it up. We have over 481 Republicans who were slave owners. 481 Republicans were slave owners. Being that it's that many Republicans, white men, who were slave owners, how many do you think of their descendants are still holding a United States government congressional Senate seat today out of that 481 Republicans that had black Africans as slaves? How many of their descendants do you think are still in existence today that own your ancestors? No matter where you at, you could be in Africa, you could be in Europe, you can be in the Caribbean islands, you can be all across the African diaspora, you can be all across America. But at some point, at some epoch in time, one of these people are related to you. One of these black Africans that were enslaved are one of your ancestors. Out of 481 Republicans and 606 Democrat congressmen own black African human beings. So how many of those descendants, Democrats and Republicans, still have a congressional Senate seat here in 2022 who has not been held responsible? Their family generation has not been held responsible for the enslavement of our ancestors, who have not paid their debt to humanity. This is bigger than a regular debt. This is bigger than a regular debt, a currency debt, an economic debt. This is deeper than that. This is a moral debt, a principle debt, a humanitarian debt. How many of those descendants who still hold seats in the United States of America's congressional Senate houses have been held accountable for 481 Republican senators, congressmen, 606 Democrat Congress senators? How many of their descendants and their forefathers and their foremothers have been held responsible for the moral debt, the principle debt, the violation of human rights debt here in 2022? So I'm trying to ask my brothers and sisters in America. How do we support that? How do we support them? How do we vote for them if they haven't paid the ultimate debt to humanity? They haven't paid the ultimate debt to humanity. The violation of a human being. The violation of a man and a woman and his children to be human beings. And none of them have paid that debt to date. The debt is in late fees. Their morality, their principles are in late fees. And I ain't talking about just no regular currency. I'm not just talking about no paper. You see what I'm saying? Their morality, their principles as being human beings is in late fees. In late fees. So as a new African, an African man, woman, and children, how can you support that as a man and a woman here in the United States of America, in the land of the slaves. America is the land of slavery. There has been no other country on this planet that has done to another people what the United States of America has done to another human people. The worst is Holocaust. The worst is Ma'afa. The worst is genocide in humanity's history. How, as a black man and a black woman here in 2022, how do you support that? How do you support a Republican? How do you support a Democrat? Whether he's black, white, Chinese, Mexican. Because when they take that oath, listen to me closely. Listen to me closely. When a Democrat or Republican, whether he's white, black, Asian, Mexican, when they take that oath to sit in that Democratic congressional seat, Senate seat, governor seat, mayor seat, they have now took on the debt. They have now took on the debt of the forefathers, the foremothers, the original terrorists, the original white supremacists, murderers, kidnappers. They have now took on their late fees. They have now took on their generational debt to humanity, to God, to the ancestors. They have now took on the debt that they owe new African people spread it all across this globe. And not just the United States neither. The rest of their comrades, the rest of their brothers and sisters out there in Europe, the European nations out there in Europe. Once you take that Democrat seat, that Republican seat, and take part and participate in any United States office in this land of the slaves, you have now become a part of the historical genocide, the historical terrorism, the historical kidnapping, the historical slave breeding, the historical terrorism on taking identity, taking nationality, taking sovereignty, taking culture, taking spirituality, taking our tongue, taking our language. Once you pledge allegiance to that oath of the United States of America, knowing that it's 1,700 criminals, 1,700 criminals who have descendants who are still governing our genocide to date in 2022, as police departments across America continue to murder your children, murder your mother, murder your father, murder your nieces, murder your nephews. When you take that oath, you now have become a part of the criminal organization and organized crime and organized terrorism of the greatest genocide in the history of humankind's existence. How do you wake up and live with that every day? So this is my message to the people that say, if you don't participate in United States politics, if you don't participate in United States electoral politics, who always want to come out every once in 4 years, come out the shadows like they doing something, like what they doing is they doing the righteous thing. Let me tell you something. When you try to say that people like us don't have a voice, do you hear the ancestors? Do you hear the ancestors still crying out for justice? Do you hear the ancestors still on them plantations in the southern states? Do you go to the plantations at night in the southern states and sit there in the dark, sit under the stars, sit under the sun, and listen to the ancestors' voices still crying out for justice, for the blood that they shedded on the southern lands and the northern lands and the western lands? Do you go to these places? Do you go to the plantations and listen to the ancestors speak to us, cry to us? Do you hear them? Because they haven't got justice yet. And you've been voting for how long? You've been voting since the 60s, right? Y'all been voting since the 60s, right? So If you ain't got no justice for these ancestors yet, and you're supporting a genocidal history of genocide on your ancestors and criminals who have not yet been held accountable for their actions, how do you have a voice? Whose voice are you speaking for? Is what I'm trying to figure out. What ancestral voices are you hearing? What ancestors are you speaking for? Because you cannot be speaking for those ancestors who were hung by ropes, whipped, thrown over boats. Ancestors who chose to rise up. Ancestors who chose to rise up and fight back and shed blood to liberate their people off them plantations. Who wanted to go back home to Africa. Who wanted their own Africa right here. Who actually did set up independent settlements, communities, economic social formations on this land. Who chose to be separated from the white man. Who chose to be separated from the United States government. Y'all don't speak for them. You can't tell them that we don't have no voice. When this is historical, documented history of struggle of black people in this country for over 400 to 500 years, including the indigenous nations. So do you really have a voice when you can wake up every day and you're black, you're African in this country and say that, and say it proudly that I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, when they have now put out evidence that 1,700 of these so-called Democrats that you believe in, that you put your life in their control of governance, 481 Republicans, 606 Democrats, 1,700 white supremacist terrorists that own black bodies. So you're speaking for our ancestors? No. 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 You don't have indigenous authority. You don't have ancestral authority to tell what black man or black woman or black child in this country who has a voice, who don't have a voice. Just because you support our oppressors, just because you support the Democrats, the Republicans, the United States government of America, who have not atoned for the worstest genocide and Holocaust, the Ma'afa, in the history of humankind, who has not paid reparations. Reparations is due, y'all. Reparations is due. No matter where you at on this globe, African people, no matter where you at, wherever you at, African people, you are owed reparations from European nations. America is a European nation at this moment. It's a settler colonial nation, but it's a European nation. It's a Western nation. So all nations of Europeans has to be held accountable for what they did to our ancestors, man. They have to pay the moral debt, the principal debt, the human debt, the ancestral debt of what they did to our ancestors, brothers and sisters. They have to pay the debt. In 2022, I'm calling out everybody. We must hold them responsible and accountable for the most horrific debt in the history of mankind, womankind, childrenkind. On this indigenous land, Turtle Island land, we must hold them accountable. We must hold the Democrats accountable. We must hold the Republicans accountable. We must hold the northern states accountable. We must hold the southern states accountable. Because it's still going on. It ain't over. We still being genocided. We still being enslaved. 13th Amendment, mass incarceration. We still being genocided through our water, our food, biological weapons, Omicron, COVID, Delta, which affects our communities, more than any community in this country. Black and brown communities. It's time, y'all. It's time, man. We gotta stop playing these silly mental games. We gotta stop playing these silly mental games, y'all. We have to hold everybody accountability for what they did to our ancestors. Nobody is excused for what they did to our ancestors, brothers and sisters. I don't care who you vote for. I don't care what organization that's white in America that you align yourself with. We still have to hold them accountable for the Holocaust, the Ma'afa, the genocide, the land theft, the brutal repression and murder of our peoples. Period. Ain't no sugarcoating this shit. Ain't no voting our way out this shit. Ain't no begging our way out of this shit. If you want black liberation, you want freedom, you want the land back, you want your tongue back, you want what you may never ever get back, you want your sovereignty back, you want your nationality back, you want your right as a human being back. Ain't no sugarcoating that when you align yourself with the same people who brutally did this to your ancestors and we haven't held them accountable for it. Period. Period. The only struggle and fight for new African black people in this country is a human rights fight. The only fight for new African black people in this country is a land fight, a reparation fight, a national identity fight, a political plebiscite, a political referendum. Either one, don't make a difference. To claim what's ours for the bloodshed, kidnapping, and illegal breeding, human trafficking by the Congress of the United States of America. Period. 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 And as I close out, look at this. Look at these names. This just came out yesterday, y'all, from the Washington Post. The biggest historical database of the criminals of the U.S. Congress and the U.S. Senate who enslaved black, brown, indigenous peoples on this land, y'all, is right here. Go hit that link in my description box of this live and check out all the names from every state, southern state, northern state, western states, the names of the 1,700 criminals, Democrats and Republicans who owned your great-great-grandfathers and your great-great-grandmothers and their children and their children and their children and their children. Exactly, brother. Exactly. Exactly, OC. The British government is still enslaving Biafra people in Nigeria through the Fulani Janjaweed terrorist government. Facts. Facts. Slavery is still going on all across this globe on certain African black people. Because I ain't going to say all black African people, because some black African people are in on the enslavement of our people. So I'm not going to say all. I'm going to just say certain African brothers and sisters. You feel me? The truth must be told. It's time for reparations, brother. It's time for reparations, man. We shouldn't be all this screaming and shouting and crying and calling for justice, political, social justice and things of this nature, brothers and sisters. Man, that time is over with. The only thing that we should be hooting and hollering for is the land, reparations, and total independence. Period. 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 Total independence. Total independence. Reparations, man. If you ain't talking about reparations, or if you're not trying to support, hold on. Let me break this down. Hold on. Let me break this down real quick. Let me break this down real quick. let me break this down real quick. Look here, man. If you're a part of an organization, that is not of African descent, if you're a part of an organization that doesn't support black reparations, black self-determination, and the right to be human beings on this planet or in the United States of America or in Nigeria, if you're not supporting that, then you are an enemy of our people. You are an enemy of our people. Period. 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 The truth must be told. And I'm going to sign off on that note, man. I want to thank everybody for tuning into this live. If you didn't catch this live, it will be up. Come back, watch it, but share this live, y'all. Breaking news. Breaking news. The United States government has just revealed through the Washington Post 1,700 congressmen who owned black African people on this indigenous land of Turtle Island. It's out now. Share it with everyone, y'all. On that note, I'm going to sign off. Haki Kweli Shakur, man, a.k.a. Ikechi. All praises to the ancestors. All praises to Chukwu Abiyama. All praises to the freedom fighters, the sacrificers, the ancestors, the political prisoners of war. Free Mutulu Shakur. Free Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Free all the freedom fighters across the planet, brothers and sisters. Remember, be a loyal enemy, man. We know you can be a loyal friend. Be a loyal enemy. Because your enemies have more faith in what you can do than what you think you can do. Be a loyal enemy. Long live Sanyika Shakur. Long live the New African Independence Movement. Long live the August 3rd Collective and the New African People's Liberation Army. Free the land by any means necessary.